happen?
Yaakov.
You can hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Nothing Elijah loves more than learning Hasidut and Kabbalah.
His favorite topics.
His favorite topics in the whole wide world. I believe we are on letter 23.
I think so as well.
Okay. Would you like to go first, sir?
Yes.
You may go first.
I will go right at it once I get situated over here. Okay. בגזירת עירין פתגמה ומאמר קדישין.
It's funny, now you've started like with your Aramaic. When you notice it's Aramaic, you read it very well. Like, I don't know what happened that now you've switched. Okay, it's Hebrew. I'm not going to pay attention to the nekudot. I will say it however I think it means.
Yeah.
But once it's Aramaic, nekudot.
Well, yeah. Now that I know a little bit more about like the common patterns of like you were talking like how you would read it, how it would supposed to sound. So that also helps as a shorthand, sort of.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm paying much more attention to nekudot than I used to, for sure.
Good job.
So what was this statement in Aramaic? It says, this statement is made by decree of the wakeful angel and by the word of those holy ones.
So Irene are a class of angels.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So here you go.
Literally meaning the awakened ones.
The awakened ones.
So the woke are angels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You might say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
חכמי המשנה עליהם השלום, the Mishnaic sages, peace be upon them, ששנו במשנתם 10 שיושבים ועוסקים בתורה, שכינה שרויה ביניהם. The sages taught in their Mishnah, in Perkei Avot, if 10 people sit together and engage in the study of Torah, the divine presence rests among them. כי זה כל האדם. For this is the whole purpose of man. So the entire world was created solely for this purpose. ואף גם זאת, הייתה כל ירידתו בעולם הזה לצורך עלייה זאת. Moreover, the soul's very descent to this world was for the purpose of this ascent, going upward. אשר אין עליה למעלה Hemena, yeah, this one I know. And no possible ascent is higher than this. כי שכינת וזו אשר בגבהי מרומים, גובהי מרומים, והשמיים ושמי השמיים לא יכלכלו, אמתה. For the Shekhinah of God's might, which is in the supernal heights and whose awesomeness the heavens and the heavens of the heavens cannot contain. תשכון ותתגדל בתוך בני ישראל. כמו שכתוב, כי אני השם שוכן בתוך בני ישראל. So the Shekhinah dwells and becomes magnified among the children of Israel, as it is written, for I, God, dwell inside the children of Israel. על ידי עסק התורה והמצוות בעשרה דווקא. As a result of their, so this happens as a result of their study of Torah and observance of the commandments in groups of at least 10 Jews. כמו שאמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, עתיה תוך וגומר, או כולי. Okay, that's new. For our sages of blessed memory said, we infer a conclusion from 2 appearances of the word toch.
So this is a general thing called a gezerat shava, which is when you have two words in the Torah, the exact same words, that in two different places you can understand one by understanding the other. Now, if there is a tradition of that, and the sages taught that apparently there's a verse, Leviticus 22:32, and a different verse, Numbers 16:21. Both of them say toch b'nei Israel. Right? The one says ki ani Hashem shochen betoch b'nei Israel, and the other one is talking about toch b'nei Israel. It's, well, let's look up that verse, what it actually says, if it will load. There we go. Hibadlu mitoch ha'edah hazot va'achale ota karega. So he doesn't. This is by Korach, so he doesn't exact quote it because it's not such a nice one. But it says toch ha'edah. So toch b'nei Israel, and toch ha'edah tells you that when it talks about the Shekhinah being toch b'nei Israel, it's talking specifically about Eidah, and an Eidah is 10.
Yeah, and I mean, we also know that about the spies, right? He says with Eidah Zo, I forget.
Right. That's where we learn out that Eidah means an asara of 10. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. ועל זה נאמר, בקרבך קדוש. Concerning this, it is written, the Holy One is within you. ואין דבר שבקדושה בפחות מ10. Likewise, the congregational recital of a דבר שבקודש.
שבקדושה. So, for example, Kedusha itself, or Kriyat Torah, or Kaddish, or anything like that, right?
Requires to have a minyan, a quorum of 10 men.
Correct.
ומשום הכי נמי, אצטרך לאו לרבותינו זיכרונם לברכה למילף מקרא.
Right, so this is again Aramaic, right? Umishum hachinami, because of also this, nami means also. Itztrich, it is necessary lahu, for it the scripture to say, l'rabotenu zichronam l'bracha lemelef mikra, for our sages to derive, melef means to take out of, mikra, the scripture.
מניין שאפילו אחד שיושב, מניין שאפילו אחד שיושב ועוסק בתורה וכו'. So where do we know that even one person who sits and engages in the study of Torah?
Right. So they had to ask this question, because generally the rule would be, we would understand that Bekedusha. Now, obviously, the Mishnah says that even if one person sits and studies Torah, it's still a beautiful thing. But we understand from this that really the ikar, the main way in which God's Holy Spirit is revealed in the world is when you have a congregation, you have a minyan that is studying Torah.
Right. ואף גם זאת, לא מצאו לו סמך מן המקרא, אלא לקביעת שכר בלבד, ליחיד לפי ערכו, ולפי ערך המרובים. And even so, the sages did not find in scripture support for that. They did not find support for the proposition that an individual can bring about the previously mentioned indwelling of God's holiness, but only for the allotment of a reward to the individual proportionate to himself and in proportion to the many. Okay? אבל לעניין השראת קדושת הקדוש ברוך הוא, אין לו ערך אליהם כלל, but as to causing an indwelling of God's holiness, the individual cannot be compared to the congregation at all, right? So when it comes to reward, we can compare, but not when it comes to the Shekhinah in terms of in scripture.
Mhm.
Okay? וההפרש שבין השראה לקביעות שכר מובן למביני מדע. The distinction between causing a divine indwelling by collective study and the allotment of reward to an individual student is understood by discerning thinkers. So maybe Elijah could tell us about this.
Yes.
כי קביעת שכר הוא שמאיר השם לנפש תדרשנו באור תורתו שהוא מעטה לבושו ממש. For the allotment of a reward is what takes place when God illuminates the soul that seeks him with the light of his Torah, which is truly the covering in which God garbs himself. So, so the light of his Torah is his garb, is his garment. Interesting. ולכן נקראת התורה אור, שנאמר עוטה אור כשלמה.
Kesalma.
Kesalma. Well, that's what you say, or what you were supposed to say when you wear the talit, right?
Right. So that this comes from Barchi Nafshi, right? It says Ote or Kesalma refers to God as one who Ote literally means to spread, right?
Yeah.
So he spreads light like a salma is like a shawl, right? So it's one of the verses that people say is so it's Ote or Kesalma notet Shamayim ki yeriya, right? He wears the heavens as a curtain, right?
Yeah.
So or is something that is in a sense a garment of godliness.
Yeah. Okay. והנפש היא בעלת גבול ותכלית בכל כוחותיה. Now, the soul is limited and finite in all of its faculties. לכן, גם אור השם המאיר בה הוא גבולי, מצומצם ומתלבש בתוכה. Therefore, the light of God that radiates in the soul is also limited and contracted and vests itself within it. ועל כן יתפעל לב מבקשי השם בשעת התפילה וכיוצא בזה. This is why the hearts of those who seek God are ecstatically aroused at the time of prayer and the like. כי בו ישמח ליבם ויגל אף גילת ורנן.
V'yagil.
V'yagil, yeah, I wasn't sure. Yeah. For their hearts rejoice in him and exult even with exultation and song. ותתענג נפשם בנועם השם, or על השם, ואורו. And their souls delight in the pleasantness of God and his light. בגלותו במעטה לבושו שהיא התורה. As it becomes revealed through the covering in which God garbs himself, which is the Torah. ויצא כברק חיצו. And his arrow comes forth like lightning. So I'm trying to get a visual of this. So you in the tefillah, you read, you yearn, and you yearn and aim for and to receive the light, right?
Right.
It's also already contained in some measure in your soul. So there's some kind of like a connection.
Right, but your soul is something that's bar gavul. It's metzumtzam, right? So we try, and so there's a light from God which shines upon us in a manner of tzimtzum, right? I think what he's gonna and that is something that can be called schar, right? And then I think what he's going to talk about afterwards is that the Hasharat Shechina is something that is beyond this or me'ir that happens when you study Torah or when you pray.
Interesting. I just want to plant an image here because it just for some reason it evokes this image to me, but it kind of reminds me of how you have a drop, and if the drop gets nearer to a bigger body of water, like the bigger drop, then it gets kind of consumed. Suddenly, like there's a moment where it gets like totally consumed in it. So it kind of makes me think of like our soul is like that drop, and it gets slowly, and there's something that it completely gets uh, it gets annulled by the whole by the body of water. But that moment is almost like probably like ecstasy for that little drop.
Right. Yeah. I mean that's kaluta nefesh. That's yeah. That's Nadav and Avihu for
Right. Yeah.
to some extent. Yeah.
וזוהי קביעת השכר התורה הקבועה תמיד בנפש עמלה בה. This is the allotment of the reward for the study of Torah, which is always fixed in the soul that labors in it. אבל ההשראה, indwelling of the Shekhinah, however, היא הערה עצומה מאור השם המאיר בה בלי גבול ותכלית. It's an intense radiance from the light of God that radiates in it, within the soul itself, and not within its inherently limited faculties, without limit or end. ואינו יכול להתלבש בנפש גבולית, כי אם מקיף עליה מלמעלה, מראשה ועד רגלה. The light cannot become vested within a finite soul, but encompasses it from above, like a transcendent mekif light from its head to its foot. כמו שאמרו חכמינו זיכרונם לברכה, אבל בעשרה שכינתה שרי. הקל, אבל, אוקיי. הקל בעשרה שכינתה שרי. כלומר, עליהם מלמעלה. As our sages of blessed memory said or taught, the Shekhinah hovers over every gathering of 10 Jews, over them from above. כמו שכתוב, ויהי נועם השם עלינו ומעשה ידינו כוננה עלינו. Thus it is written, may the pleasantness of the Lord our God be upon us, establish upon us the work of our hands. כלומר, כי נועם השם אשר הופיע במעשה ידינו בעסק התורה והמצוות. We ask that the pleasantness of God, which has appeared through the work of our hands, in our involvement in the Torah and its commandments, דאורייתא וקודשא בריחו כולה אחד, for the Torah and the Holy One, blessed be He, are entirely one. יתכונן וישרה עלינו מלמעלה, become established and rest upon us from above. להיותו בלי גבול ותכלית ואינו מתלבש בנפשנו ושכלנו. For it is without limit and end and does not become vested within our finite soul and intellect. ועל כן, אין אנו משיגים בשכלנו הנעימות והערבות מנועם השם וזיו השכינה בלי גבול ותכלית. This is why we do not apprehend with our intellect the delightfulness and sweetness of the pleasantness of God and the unlimited splendor of the Shekhinah. אשר מתכונן ושורה עלינו במעשה ידינו בתורה ומצוות ברבים דווקא. That is established and rests upon us through the work of our hands in our joint study of Torah and our joint fulfillment of the commandments. Okay. I don't know if nothing comes to mind. Okay. ועל זה אמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, שכר מצווה בהאי עלמא לך. And of this our sages of blessed memory said, in this world there is no reward for the performance of the commandments
in this world. Yeah.
in this world. Since this world is finite, it cannot be a receptor for the infinite revelation of divine radiance that is called forth by the performance of a mitzvah. כי אי אפשר לעולם להשיגו, כי אם בהתפשטות הנפש מהגוף. For it is impossible for the world to attain the reward of the infinite light, except when the soul is divested from the body. ואף גם זאת, על דרך החסד, כמו שכתוב, ולך השם חסד, כי אתה תשלם לאיש כמעשהו. And even then, the soul is able to receive this light only by way of grace, as it is written, kindness, O God, is yours, for you render to have every man according to his work.
I didn't realize this was a verse from Psalms. Like, what do the Christians do with this?
Why? What is
because they're like they have this idea that like by faith alone, that it's not they talk against works righteousness and stuff like that, and it's just so silly. Like obviously God is just and fair, and everything is according to how hard you work and how you don't know what to tell you.
Okay. וכמו שאמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, שהקדוש ברוך הוא נותן כוח בצדיקים וכולי. Thus our sages of blessed memory taught that the Holy One, blessed be He, gives the righteous the capacity to receive their reward in the world to come. מה שאין כן במלאכים. This is not so, however, with the angels, which are incapable of receiving an infinite degree of revelation. Interesting. כמו שמעתי מרבותיי, רבותיי, כי אילו נמצא מלאך אחד עומד במעמד 10 מישראל ביחד, אף שאינם מדברים בדברי תורה. As I heard from my masters, Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid of Message, that if one angel were to stand in the presence of a gathering of 10 Jews, even if there were no words of Torah between them, תיפול עליו אימתה ופחד בלי גבול ותכלית משכינתא דשרי עליהו, עד שהיה מתבטל ממציאותו לגמרי. Such a boundless and infinite terror and dread would then befall on him, on account of the Shekhinah that abides over them, that he would become utterly nullified. Interesting. Okay, so that's right. ועל כן רע בעיני המעשה אשר נעשה תחת השמש בכלל. Therefore, evil in my eyes is the conduct that takes place under the sun in general. What does that mean? What's this note here? The Alter Rebbe is referring here to those who engage in business or labor, temporal or occupations that are under the sun, in contrast to Torah that is above the sun. To them too is forthcoming words of rebuke are addressed, and he finds it evil in his eyes that before or after prayer they devote their time to light-minded talk instead of Torah study. My Musar friend is going to like this. ובפרט בין אחי ורעי הניגשים אל השם, הגשה זאת תפילה. Especially among my brethren and friends who draw near to God, and drawing near means prayer.
So these people, they're gathering in the synagogue, right, to pray, and apparently, rather than studying Torah, they're sitting there and they're talking and about other things.
But why is he saying that right after? Can you go up a little bit?
Yeah.
Valken, therefore, why is therefore here?
Because he just explains to you how holy and wonderful and godly it is when 10 Jews are gathered together, even if they're not speaking Torah, Mashe, Koshikain, right? How much more so if they were to study Torah, and in with when God's Holy Spirit is standing there in front of you, is covering you from head to toe. What are you doing?
ואחר התפילה או לפניה, נעשה מושב ליצים רחמנא ליצלן, which is a term that I know. When after, is that Aramaic too, Rachmana litzlan?
Rachmana litzlan is yes.
Yeah. Okay. When after prayer, that's kind of like a common in Israel, at least. I don't know, maybe. Like I've heard this before. When after prayer or before it, the gathering becomes a company of scoffers, heaven forfend. כמו שאמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, שניים שיושבים ואין בעיניהם דברי תורה וכולי. Yeah, strong words about them. As our sages of blessed memory said, if two people sit together, no words of Torah are exchanged between them, this is a company of scoffers. ואם נעשה מושב ליצים בעשרה, דשכינתא אשרי עליהו, אין לך אלבונה וכלנה תשכינתא גדול מזה רחמנא ליצלן. Now, if a company of scoffers is constituted by 10 people over whom the Shekhinah abides, there is no greater insult and shaming of the Shekhinah than that, heaven forfend. ואם אמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, על העובר עבירה בסתר שדוחק רגלי השכינה חס ושלום, and if our sages of blessed memory said of him who commits a transgression in secret, that he repulses the feet of the Shekhinah, heaven forfend, העובר עבירה ברבים דוחק כל שיעור קומה שיוצר בראשית כביכול, then he who commits a transgression in public repulses the whole measure of the stature of the Creator as it were. Right, so you're in a group, a quorum, and you're inviting the Shekhinah, and it's here, and then what do? כמו שאמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, אין אני והוא וכולי. As the sages of blessed memory said, it is impossible for me and him to live together in the world. Where is this? Sota?
Sota 5a.
Okay. אלא שמלך אסור ברהיטים וכולי. Rather, the king is held captive in the gutters. Right. So of the mind, this is indeed a humiliation of the Shekhinah. Aval, well, there's no way I can read this. Vai leman the dachkin lashchinta kad yukim la kudsha brichu v'yamala.
So you said the words correctly.
Yeah, this one is tough.
So vai,
I know.
vai, right, is woe. Right?
Whoa.
Lema'an, to those. The dachkin, dochek means to push away.
Yeah.
L'shchinta, right?
Kad yukimla.
God will raise her. Oh, when kad yokimla kuchabrichu, when his so the Shekhinah is in a sense the bride of God, and kuchabrichu refers to the masculine aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And when the bridegroom comes and says v'yemala hitnara rima afar kumi, right? He says, awake, arise from the dust.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen to all of those who made her fall into the dust?
Right. ועל תלת מילין מתעכבי ישראל בגלותה. על דחקין לשכינתה ועל דאבדין קלנה. בשכינתה וכולי, כמו שכתוב בזוהר הקדוש. So too, on account of the three things, are the Jewish people detained in exile, because they repulsed the Shekhinah, and because they shamed the Shekhinah, and so on, is stated in the sacred Zohar.
Yeah, I don't know what the third thing is.
Doesn't mention it here.
No. I guess we could look it up.
Yeah, so for anybody that feels offended by what the sages say, we are all offended.
Okay, now I have to look this up. Safari. Let's see, because I'm wondering what it is that he didn't.
That he didn't share. Yeah.
Yeah. So Zohar 375b. Zohar 75b. Not sure this is. I even know where to look this up because Zohar 3. There we go. Okay. Well, here. So Zohar B 375b.
Chemot. It's my parasha.
Yeah. Yachlin, Israel, נכון. שולטה מתברת ועבדה קדוש, עוד כמה, ראית קדוש, ראיתה טענה. על 3 מילין מתאפקן ישראל בגלותה, עד דאבדין קלנה בשכינתה בגלותה, ומהדרה ענפיהו מן שכינתה, ועל דמסעי וגרמייהו קמי שכינתה, וכולהו אוקימנה במתניתה דילן. that they cause kalana, like we said, shame to the Shekhinah in Galut. Hadre anfaihu min Shekhinah, and they turn back, I think, the wings of the Shekhinah. Va'al the Messiah garmaihu kame Shekhinah. I'm not sure I know how to translate this. That they, I believe it's saying that they dirty the clothing of the Shekhinah.
Oh, maybe that's we're talking what he said about the Torah being the garments.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I'm not Messiah. Let's see what. Come on. This. Really? There's no definition? Okay, so it can't even find the definition. What can I tell you? Are there translations?
Messiah.
למדנו על 3 דברים מתעכבן ישראל בגלותה, על שעושים קלון בשכינה בגלות, ומחזרין פניהם, פניהם מהשכינה, and they turn their faces away from the שכינה, ועל שמטמן את עצמן לפני השכינה. ואת כולם בארנו במשנתנו. So that's the translation to Hebrew. I don't know who translated this, but somebody apparently did about this text. Hebrew translation Torat Emet Freeware. Vocalized Zohar Israel 2013. Interesting. Oh, Sulam edition. Very interesting.
Do you know the Sulam edition?
The Sulam edition is the edition that the Kabbalah Center is constantly trying to push on everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So we looked it up.
It's true. Alken, weiter.
Yeah.
Alken, אהוביי, אחיי ורעיי, אל נא תיראו הרעה הגדולה הזאת. Therefore, my beloved ones, my brethren, and my friends, do not commit this great evil of turning a gathering of worshippers before or after prayers into a company of scoffers. ותנו כבוד להשם אלוהיכם בטרם יחשך, דיינו, בין מנחה למעריב כל ימות החול, and give glory unto the Lord your God before it goes dark, i.e. between Mincha and Mariv every weekday. It's interesting because I'm going to assume Chabad, I know that Mincha, they do very late. So there's a limited amount of time between Mincha and Mariv, so you probably just stay in the shul and chit-chat.
Well, yeah, that's the generally Mincha Mariv Minyanim, right? It's customary to wait at least a few minutes, but yeah, Mincha Mariv shiur. Frankly, Rabbi Beryl Wine still gives a Mincha Mariv shiur at Beit Knesset Hanasi in Rehovot, and it's on YouTube. But yeah, Mincha Mariv shiur is a very common thing in many places because you come for Mincha, you have a small shiur, and then you have Arvit.
Okay. ללמוד בעשרה פנימיות התורה, שהיא אגדה שבספר אין יעקב, by studying in groups of at least 10 the innermost mystical dimensions of the Torah, i.e. the Agada contained in Ein Yaakov. So this is where it comes from. This is like the idea that people sometimes study Ein Yaakov.
Ein Yaakov was very common printed. It's as opposed to being Talmud, just the Talmud. It's the Agadic parts of the Talmud. So common people could just listen to the stories without too much difficulty.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, as Fraudwith says, I didn't mean to in any way cast aspersions to the author of the Sulam. It's just that, unfortunately, not very nice people have made it their mission to publicize, for some reason, particularly this one work, the Sulam. Yeah.
Okay. So he says that people should study in groups, use that time to study in groups the innermost dimensions of the Torah, which is which some of it contained in the Agada, contained in Ein Yaakov. Sherov Sodot Torah gnuzin ba, for most of the secrets of the Torah are concealed in the Agada. Umechaperet avonotav shel Adam. Moreover, it atones for men's sin. Kamivwar b'ketvei Arizal, is explained in the writings of Rabbi Yitzchak Luria of blessed memory. As I don't know if we should explore that. I don't know why that specifically mechaper avonotav, but
apparently this is something that is in the Kitvei Arizal, and I may have the chutzpah to look up the Zohar. I don't have the chutzpah to look up the Kitvei Arizal. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. You're gonna disappoint Elijah, but still.
Yeah. Yes, he's a huge fan of the Kitvei Arizal. Yes.
והנגלות שבה, As to the revealed passages in the Agada, hen darkei Hashem sheilech b'hem adam. These are the ways of God in which a man ought to walk. וישית עצות בנפשו במילי דשמיא ובמילי דעילמא. וכידוע לכל חכמי לב. And these teachings, the ways enable him to take counsel in his soul in heavenly matters, such as Torah and mitzvot, and in worldly matters, as is known to all the wise of heart. וגם ללמוד מעט בשולחן ערוך, אורח חיים, הלכות הצריכות לכל אדם. In addition, between Mincha and Ma'ariv, people should study a little out of the Shulchan Aruch in the section called Orech Chaim. Orech Chaim, the laws that are essential for every person to know.
Right. There are 4 sections of Shulchan Aruch. Orach Chaim is the section that is just daily matters.
Mm-hmm. Just remembered something. I need to just write it down quickly. Okay. ועל זה אמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, כל השונה הלכות בכל יום וכולי. This our sage of blessed memory said, whoever studies Torah laws every day is assured of life in the world to come. שהן הלכות ברורות ופסוקות הלכה למעשה. This refers to clear and definitive rulings that are of practical relevance. כמבואר בפירוש רש"י זיכרונו לברכה שם, as is explained in the commentary of Rashi. ובשבת קודש בעלות המנחה יעסקו בהלכות שבת כהלכתה רבתה לשבתה. רבתה לשבתה. שבתה? How do you read this?
Hilchata Rabta Lashabta. There are many laws of Sabbath.
Mm-hmm. So on the holy Shabbat, moreover, towards the time of the Mincha, people should occupy themselves with the laws of Shabbat, for the law of Shabbat is a weighty law with many details to be mastered. ובקל יכול האדם להיכשל בה חס ושלום, אפילו באיסור כרת וסקילה מחסרון ידיעה. A person can easily stumble in it, heaven forfend, even in a prohibition punishable by extirpation, or I feel like there was another word for this.
Extirpation, spiritual excision is sometimes it's called, yeah.
Or stoning because of ignorance of these laws. ושגיגת התלמוד עולה זדון חס ושלום. And an unwitting error in observance due to insufficient study is accounted as an intentional transgression, heaven forfend. Right, so this is kind of like the rule of even if you don't know the law, you're still liable.
Well, I mean, specifically, we're talking about if it's your fault that you didn't study, right? Then it's not an excuse that you didn't know.
Yeah.
You should have studied, and then you would have known, and then you wouldn't have sinned.
Yeah. ואין צריך לומר בייסורי דברי סופרים, שרבו כמו רבו למעלה, ובפרט בייסורי מוקצה דשכיחי טובה. It goes without saying that the same applies to the rabbinic injunctions, which are ever so numerous, and especially with respect to the prohibition of muktzeh that occur frequently.
Yeah. A lot of people are not aware of the laws of muktzeh.
Yeah. So muktzeh is the things that you're not supposed to
move on the Sabbath.
Right. וחמורים דברי סופרים יותר מדברי תורה. And infringements of words of the Sofrim, the rabbinic injunctions, are more serious than infringements of the words of Torah, the explicit scriptural commandments. כמו שאמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, he's explaining this, שכל העובר על דברי חכמים, אפילו באיסור קל של דבריהם, כמו האוכל קודם תפילת ערבית וקאי גבנה, חייב מיתה כעובר על חמורות שבתורה. As our sages of blessed memory said, whoever transgresses the words of our sages, even a minor prohibition of theirs, as, for instance, he who eats before the evening prayer and the like, is liable to the death penalty, just like one who transgresses grave prohibitions explicit in the Torah.
I shouldn't have to say this, but he is highlighting the worst parts of it in order to encourage people to take things seriously. That doesn't mean that he doesn't realize that he is focusing on particular aspects of these things.
Right, and he's trying, like he did with the group of 10 that are not speaking Torah, and he's trying to highlight the effect that they could have on the Shekhinah, or here the effect that you can have, the negative effect something even tiny like this can have to raise the stakes in people's minds.
I mean, generally in a Jewish congregation, I wouldn't need to explain that this is not meant literally, but we have our good friends who may not be aware how rabbis speak. They may take these statements of his more literally than they're meant to be taken.
Yeah. Okay. וכל יחיד אל יפרוש עצמו מן הציבור אפילו ללמוד עניין אחר. And let no individual separate himself from the congregation, even in order to study something else. So if somebody's studying in Yaakov, don't go study something else.
Right. If so, maybe our friend Chazi needs to hear this, but if everybody else is listening to the Rabbi Shur, even if you already know what they're talking about and you've studied things better, you should be careful to be involved in the matter that they're studying. Even, I mean, you can try to take it deeper, maybe look in, I mean, if they're learning Shulchan Aruch, you can look at the Mefarshim while the rabbi is speaking, but you shouldn't al tifrosh min hatzibur chas v'shalom. You should never remove yourself from the congregation, God forbid.
It's interesting. It similar to a teaching that I was reading and studying in Brachot about reading parashot with the tzibur, not going.
Yeah, it's important to do things with everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's something that I feel like that's like a trade-off on I mean, I'm digressing here, but I feel like that's a trade-off that maybe we've been highlighting too. I mean, it comes up in conversations that I have with people about one of the, let's say, benefits of being in a community is that everybody has a shared agenda, you can call it. Maybe I shouldn't call it agenda, maybe, but like just a shared timeline, even to the extent, I mean, like a very superficial way to say it now is that nobody watches the same thing on Netflix anymore. Like somebody watches Hulu and somebody watches right. Netflix. So even people that are not really organized together, even them, it's hard for people to actually like communicate on the same thing.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, this is why our good friend Grim Grizz refers to Paul Vanderkooi's channel as Homeroom,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Rather, ki im bedavar shetzibur asukin bo. So every individual should participate only in whatever the congregation is busy with. ואין צריך לומר שלא יצא החוצה אם לא יהיה 10 מלבדו. And it goes without saying that one should not leave if there are not 10 without him. ועליו קורא הפסוק, ועוזבי השם יכלו, וכולי. To him who does leave, I apply the verse, and those who forsake God shall be consumed. כמו שאמרו רבותינו זיכרונם לברכה, על כל דבר שבקדושה. As our sages said of blessed memory, as our sages of blessed memory said, with respect to every sacred matter. כי אין קדושה כקדושת התורה. For there is no holiness like the holiness of the Torah. דאורייתא וקודשא בריחו כולה חד. Since the Torah and the Holy One, blessed be He, are entirely one. וכל הפורש מהציבור וכולי. Moreover, whoever separates himself from the community will not merit to witness and participate in the community's consolation. Right? ושומע לי ישכון בטח ובימיו ובימינו תושעה יהודה ירושלים תשכון לבטח. אמן כן יהי רצון.
Amen כן יהי רצון. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, yep. So we all need to stay connected.
Yes.
As the message just said, but it is relevant to us too.
Weiter? 24. Ahubai achai al na tareu re'im ahuvim leyotzram usunuim leyitzram. My beloved ones, my brethren, I beg you, friends who are beloved unto their Maker and hateful unto their evil inclinations, do no wrong. Va'al ya'aseh adam atzmo rasha sha'a achat lifnei hamakom asher bachar bah mikol hayom. Let no one make himself wicked before God during that 1 hour that he has chosen, the hour of prayer, that he has chosen of all day. Lehikahel v'la'amod lefanav b'sha'a zo, shehi et ratzon lefanav lehitgalot lavo el ha'mikdash ma'at, so that people can congregate and stand before him during that hour, for this is an auspicious time for him to be revealed and to come on into the miniature sanctuary, as we refer to the synagogue. Lifkod l'shchinat kavodo hashochen itam betoch tum'otam, to visit the Shekhinah of God's glory that dwells with the Jewish people in the midst of their impurity in Galut. Ulhimatze ledorshav umevakshav umeyachalav, to be accessible to those who seek him and entreat him and yearn for him. V'ham mesaper bistrachav, somebody who speaks of his own things. מראה בעצמו שאינו חפץ להתבונן ולראות בגילוי כבוד מלכותו. Right? He's testifying against himself that he doesn't want to meditate on and to see the revelation of God's majestic glory. ונעשה מרכבת מאה לכסיל העליון, and God forbid he becomes like a chariot to the impurities of the supernal fool. Shne'amar alav lo yachpotz kisil betvuna, as it says, the fool does not desire understanding. Kamo shekatvu hazohar v'ha'ari zechronah l'bracha, like it's stated in the Zohar and the writings of the Arizal. The Hainu, שאינו חפץ להתבונן ולראות בעיקר תפארת גדולתו של מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. That means he has no desire to contemplate and to behold the glorious splendor of the greatness of the King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He. Haniglot lamala b'sha'a zo, which are revealed from above at this hour. V'gam lamata, and also here below. El hachafetzim lehabit et kavodo v'godlo. To those who desire to see his glory and greatness.
Right, that's an interesting point. That it's like if you, like it exists, the glory exists in this in here in this world, but only for those who seek it and look at it. I was just having a conversation with somebody about seeing, like seeing, I guess seeing God in the details, right?
Dirshu Hashem behimatzo. Seek God where he is to be found, or when he is to be found.
Right. And that's kind of like, I mean, that ties into things like cognitive ideas, right? I mean, that Vervaeke might bring about relevance realization and things like that, where you
what are you paying attention to? What are you seeing? What do you want to see? What do you not want to see?
Right.
Yeah. המתעטף ומתלבש בתוך תיבות התפילה הסדורה בפי חול. As it is enclosed and garbed within the words of the liturgy, which everyone knows. ומתגלה לכל אחד לפי שכלו ושורש נשמתו, and is revealed to each one according to his intellect and the root of his soul. כדכתיב לפי שכלו יהולל איש, right? It says that a man will be praised according to his intellect. Yehalel ketiv. As spelled, the word would be pronounced Yehalel. He will praise. Umalchuta.
So it's he would praise, or he would be praised for, or according
right.
to. Yeah.
So, yeah, we say Yehulal. But the
measure,
the it's written bechaser, and so it can also be read, right, that he praises according to his understanding.
Okay.
Umalchuta derkia ke'ein malchuta de'ara, and the kingdom of heaven is similar to the kingdom on earth. שדרך המלך להיות חביון עוזו בחדרי חדרים וכמה שומרים על הפתחים, right? So we can take an analogy from a human being, right? That you have the king, right? It is customary for a king to have his might concealed in the innermost chambers, with many guards at the doors. Ad asher kama v'chama metzapim yamim v'shanim lirot uzo chvodo, right? So when people really want to go see the king, it takes them, they have to go and see the king. Uchasha'ala retzono lehitgalot lakol, but when he wants to he wishes to be seen before everyone. V'hevir kol b'chol malchuto lehikahel v'la'amod lefanav la'arotam kavod malchuto v'yikar tiferet gedulato. Right? But sometimes he sends out a message and says, everyone come together, because God wants to show them his greatness, his exalted splendor. מי שעומד לפניו ואינו חושש לראותו ומתעסק בצרכיו, right? The king is standing before you and you're busy doing something else. כמה גרוע ושכל ופתי הוא. how horrible and senseless and foolish. ונמשל כבהמות נדמה בעיני כל הבריות. Right? He's like an animal who has no capacity to actually, like the horse doesn't realize there's a king there. וגם הוא ביזיון המלך, and it's also a dishonor to the king. והראותו לפניו, right? When this is demonstrated in front of him, שאינו ספון בעיניו לקבל נחת ושעשועים מהביט אל כבודו ויופיו יותר מעסק צרכיו. That to have pleasure and delight from gazing upon his glory and beauty is of no more esteem than busying himself with normal stuff. וגם הוא מתחייב בנפשו למלך, and he also, it's a capital offense, על הראות קלונו וביזיונו את המלך לעין כל הרואה, when you publicly dishonor the king. ועל זה נאמר וכסילים מרים קלון, and this is what it means. It says fools raise the insult. כלומר,
it reminds me of the image of Esther and Achashverosh. When she enters the wife, so at this point she's a wife, and she enters, but also fears her life because you cannot enter the king's room without him. Right. And somebody showed me the archaeology of like there, you can also see like the way that the room is constructed, and it had like a big, I think it kind of alludes to in the story itself, it had like a big stick or whatever, a shvat, a rod, I forgot how you call it. Yeah, shevet. Anyway, a big stick that he would, like, you enter the room and he would give it, and you touch it, and then he pulls it back, and then you can enter. And if he doesn't pull the stick towards you, then
the scepter.
The scepter.
Yes.
Right, it's like a big, like 10, 15 feet scepter or something that he just points at you and you need to touch it. It's very interesting. Anyway.
כלומר, אף שהוא חסיל לא יהיה מרים קלון, שיהיה נראה הקלון לעין כל. This means to say that though he is a fool, he should not raise the insult, making it apparent to all, for this not only dishonors the king, but also constitutes a capital offense. ועל כן, קבעו חכמינו זכרונם לברכה בתפילה כאילו עומד לפני המלך. That's why our sages say that when it's time of prayer, right, it's as if you stand before the king. על כל פנים יהיה מראה בעצמו כאילו עומד חולו. You should at least pretend, make it appear, לעין כל רואה בעיני בשר אל מעשיו ודיבוריו, right, in the sight of all who see physically what he is doing and what he's saying. אף שאין לו מחשבה לכסיל, even if he has no thoughts like a fool. ועל זה העניין נתקן כל התפילות למתבונן בהם היטב. It was concerning this matter, the realization that one is standing before the king at the time that he appoints to reveal his glory to those who seek him, that all the prayers were instituted, as is evident to whoever meditates deeply upon them.
Right. It's kind of like it's like an exercise of humility, like prayer. I mean, in one sense. But it was always odd to me when I started praying of like how long you spend on just like just saying words of exaltation. I don't know if that's
right.
Just saying all of that, like repeating it, and like I just and in my mind I was thinking, I still think about this, about like why all these words, right? Like why is this the thing that we do? I
mean, I would say first and foremost it engenders an admiration and and a realization of the greatness of God, which hopefully should also make us understand how uh, how indebted we are to God.
Mm-hmm.
ומי שאינו מראה כן מתחייב בנפשו, and somebody who doesn't show this, right, he is guilty of a capital offense. ועליו אמרו בזוהר הקדוש, דאנהיג קלנה בתיקונה אילאה, ואך זה פרודה, ולית לחולקה, באלהה דישראל, רחמנא ליצלן. It says in the Zohar that someone who brings a disgrace into the supernal order, betikuna ila'a, ba'achze feruda, and shows that he is separate from holiness, v'leit lechulaka ba'alaha Israel. Such a person does not have a share in the God of Israel. Al ken shlichutaihu the Rabotenu Zichronam Livracha Ka Avidna. Therefore, I am hereby acting as an agent of our sages of blessed memory. The Ligzor Gezerah Shava L'chol Nefesh, to enact a decree equally for everyone. Shelo Lasuach Sicha Betela, that they shouldn't chatter worthless idle talk. מי שיתחיל השליח ציבור להתפלל התפילה עד גמר קדיש בתרא, שחרית, ערבית ומנחה. From the time that the shliach tzibur, the reader, they say, I don't like that, begins to recite the prayers until the last Kaddish, Shachrit, Mincha, and Arvit.
So maybe can you enlighten me? This is very much a digression.
Yeah.
Shaliach tzibur. Like so, when I grew up,
Hmm.
I know of the concept of a chazan. So
Right.
what's the difference between a chazan and a shaliach tzibur?
Good question. We do generally use it as interchangeable, but shliach tzibur is is somebody who is acting on behalf of the entire congregation, right? So, for example, when we say Chazarat Hashatz, right? Chazarat Shliach Tzibur, right?
Yeah.
That person is saying those brachot on behalf of the community. And if there was not a minyan, he could not start to say it. Or, for example, when he says, especially Kaddish Titkabal, right? So you can't say Kaddish Titkabal unless there was a congregation there, right?
Mhm.
You can't just say Kaddish by yourself or Kedusha by yourself or any of these things, right? So when there is a congregation, a minyan of 10 people, one person has to be the Shlech Tzibur, and the Shlech Tzibur fulfills the communal obligation on behalf of everyone together.
Yeah.
Right? Now, a chazan, there are places, where you just have somebody, for example, Kabbalat Shabbat, right? This is a minhag that has spread throughout the Jewish community of singing certain hymns before the beginning of the evening prayers of whatchamacallit, right? Arvit of Shabbat, right? So the things like, for example, and Arvit of Shabbat actually is one of the few places where you in the evening prayer you have a main sheva, you have a bracha that is said that is kind of like a Chazarat Hashatz, right?
Baruch.
Um,
Mhm.
so the Shliach Tzibur says that, but Lecha Dodi, it's the person isn't acting as a Shliach Tzibur, he's acting as a Chazan.
Right.
Yeah.
And okay, another question.
Yes.
And when I started going to Chabad, this shows you the gap of like the only really synagogue that I know is like Chabad.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started going to Chabad, I noticed that, and I can't remember when I was a kid, what was there. But when I go to Chabad, there is one person reading from the Torah. So even if you get an Aliyah,
Right.
there is a person that reads the Torah for you. You say the blessings. Is that common in every shul, or
So everybody but the Yemenites does that
the
because
Yemenites love to?
the in a Yemenite synagogue, you have to read yourself. So if you're getting an aliyah in a Yemenite synagogue, you have to prepare the aliyah, and you're supposed to read the targum as well.
Right, there's a meturgaman, or is it you or somebody else? Right, there's like a interpreter.
Right. Now that's basically in all other congregations, because most people don't know how to read from the Torah and certainly don't know how to chant and would make many mistakes,
Yeah.
etc. There's a Baal Koreh who reads.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I mean, actually nowadays we say Barov Am Hadrat Melech, the fact that you have two people involved. You know, the Baal Koreh is in a sense also being giving testimony to that to the portion that you're reading, etc., etc. But Ikar, actual way that it's supposed to be is when you get an aliyah that really you should read the chant the Torah portion yourself, and that's what bar mitzvahs boys do.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah.
Okay, I think that's it for my questions for now.
That's it. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have some surprise questions later on, but yeah.
Okay. And yes, yeah, the Yemenites are based. Yes, the Yemenites are very based. Okay. והעובר על זה בזדון ישב על הארץ ויבקש משלוש אנשים שיתירו לו נידוי שלמעלה. And anyone who disobeys this should sit on the ground and convene a rabbinic court to remove the excommunication that he has brought upon himself. V'shav v'rafalo, and he should repent and be healed. V'lo chal alav shum nidui lemafreya kol ikar. And if he does this, then retroactively the excommunication will have never applied to him. Ki mitchilato lo chal. For at the very outset it didn't happen. Ki im al hamordim v'haposhim she'enan chosheshin klal levakesh kapara min hashamayim u'min habriot al ha'avon plili hazeh. Because really this excommunication only refers to somebody who is such a horrible person that he would do such a thing without and not ask for that this. I mean, he's being very, very harsh.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, but like from a relationship standpoint, you can kind of, I feel like this talks about, when you do something bad to somebody and then the person tells you, like, you did this to me and it really offended me. if you say, "Well, I didn't even know you cared about that," that could piss the other person off even more. Like you don't even know that this is matters to me. Like this is
Yeah,
even deeper than I thought.
I'll tell you, I have seen many people, God for have mercy on
Offended.
all of us, speak during the tefillah, and I've never seen anybody actually sit before a rabbinic court. Maybe, I mean, there actually is a custom to do it. Um, we are in Elul. Have we started Elul yet? No,
Not yet.
Elul.
But yeah, it's there's murmurings about it though.
Yeah, we're getting to Elul, and before Rosh Hashanah, there is a custom of Hatarat Nadarim, and
Mhm.
uh, but other than that, I haven't really seen anybody really do this. But yeah, he's being kind of harsh here.
Yeah.
וגם דווקא כשמדברים בזדון בשעת נפש, בשעת nefesh. Also, this excommunication applies only when people speak deliberately and brazenly. V'lo al hashocheach o shenizraku mipiv kama tevot belo mitkaven. It's not he forgot, or maybe a few words slipped out. She'eino tzarich lahatara klal. Such a thing, he doesn't have to, doesn't require a hatara. Uvochen libot klayot elokim tzaddik, and God, who is righteous, examines the heart and the kidneys. Hetiva Hashem latovim ve'lisharim belibotam. Be benevolent, O God, unto the good and unto those who are upright in their hearts. Yeah.
Okay.
Are we gonna do Epistle 25?
Now we're gonna leave that for next week.
Yeah. This one's gonna require a heavy introduction and disclaimer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Should I add like a trigger warning to the thumbnail for next week?
It's okay. But I will say I seriously considered skipping Epistle 25.
I am going to have to look at this before
Okay.
to just get a sense of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Nice.
Okay.
I do have a question. This is not related to Tanya at all, but
not related to the
well, it is related to. It's not idle chit chat.
Baruch Hashem.
Okay. Completely. It's kind of random, but I mean, I guess we can. But it's just I had a conversation with somebody, and I can't remember the full context now, but I was curious from you about challah. So challah is the bread that we eat on Shabbat, and when I say challah, I know like the bread, the braided bread, but that's not necessarily the bread that everybody eats. Or like, so what's your experience?
Okay. So when we say challah,
well, yeah, challah is also it's a term for something specific. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so when we say challah, we are actually talking about there's a mitzvah that when you bake bread to lahafrish challah, take out a certain amount of it as a gift to the Kohanim, right? And that allows the rest of it to be eaten. Okay. And the word challah means to make profane, right? So it makes it so that the bread, that the part that we eat, right? We take out challah, we take out a little bit, and now the custom is simply to burn that little bit, and the rest of it is the bread. right?
Right, and you need to make a ton of dough to do that, which is kind of like crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you can take challah from in order to make a bracha, you need to make enough dough, etc. Right? And like Elijah says, any bread can be challah.
Yeah.
Now that's separate from what most people think of challah, right? Which is for the meals on the Sabbath, right? There are 3 instituted meals on the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
Shalosh seudot, right?
Right.
And to have a meal, you generally have bread as that makes the meal, right? So when we say kiddush on wine, and we make hamotzi on the bread,
Right.
right? So there is, I think it's a Mishnah, something like that specifically women, the women of Israel are extolled, and there's many mystical things supposedly about how great it is to keep the mitzvah of challah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is to take, which is to make enough dough in order to take challah,
Right.
right? And so many people have gotten have became accustomed to making challah for making bread specifically for Fridays, especially homemade bread, so that they could take the challah, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's why they ended up calling the bread challah,
Oh, yeah.
right? Now, having bread on Shabbat, right? Shtei halechem, right? Having um, two loaves of bread um, for each meal, right? That's a whole other thing.
Right. Yeah. Lechem mishneh, or yeah.
Lechem mishneh, and right, and but in, like Elijah always knows everything. Modern challah is just a Central European style bread that became
Yeah.
ubiquitous in the Ashkenazi community.
Yeah. So that's how the conversation started between me and my friend, of like trying to figure out. Like, he was asking me if I had like if my dad had like an experience with like a different kind of bread. So that's why I said
I
I'll
mean,
ask my other Persian friend too.
generally back in Iran, we would have a round bread,
Mm-hmm.
right? We would have 2 round breads.
Yeah.
Like and flat. I mean, there are people who still like with pita bread. It doesn't have to be challah. Like, in fact, so this gets into a whole other thing. So Ashkenazim make this bread that rises with eggs, etc., right? Which some would say, according to the Beit Yosef, to the Shulchan Maran in the Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo, is not actually bread; it's cake. So it's mezonot.
Yeah.
And so this is why, I mean, anytime if you go to an actual, especially here in Los Angeles, but if you go to a kosher bakery on a Friday, there will be as many water challahs as there will be egg challahs, because really, I mean, there are people who will argue that the Sephardim can't make hamotzi on a piece of cake. I mean, you might as well have chocolate cake.
Yeah.
How is this bread?
Yeah. I'll make a motzi on babka.
I mean,
And
if you eat enough of it, you
yeah.
mezonot becomes also hamotzi. But like, yeah. So the fact is, there are Sephardim who are who are makpid to use water challah, which doesn't have so much egg in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And is the lechem mishneh, is the two breads, is that
So
for,
that,
for everybody, or does
right,
that
that is a halacha,
mm-hmm.
right? And actually, so why
So
do we
just
have three matzot on? Why do we have three matzot on Pesach, right?
mm-hmm.
Because um, first of all, there were the two loaves that were brought
Yeah.
as offerings on Pentecost. That's one reason for the two loaves. Another is Shamor v'Zachor, right? We have the two versions of the Ten Commandments, which have slightly different ways of describing the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Shamor v'Zachor. Also, the man, right?
Double portion.
On Friday, there was a double portion for Shabbat,
Yeah.
right? And so, what were we talking about? I lost my train of thought.
We're talking about bread.
I know we were talking about bread, but what did I? What
You're
was
talking about the reasons.
why? Oh,
Too.
Passover. That's what I forgot. So on Passover, there on Passover. So because it's lachma de'ania, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is the bread of affliction. It is a bread of poverty,
Yeah.
right? So we break one of the matzot, right? So the reason we have three matzot is to have shtei alechem, two complete ones, in addition to the third one, which is broken.
Right.
Right. So on regularly you on holidays and on Shabbat you make sure to have two whole breads if you can.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Got it?
Got it. Yeah. Okay. What other random questions do I have?
I have no idea. What other random questions do you have?
No, I think that was the most random. I've got. How's Shadow doing?
Shadow is doing well.
It's cute.
Yeah. Shadow is doing well. Happy's not doing so bad either. Happy's not doing so bad either, but I can't hold her up. She weighs 80 pounds.
It's okay.
It's slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
Shadow, she only weighs 12 pounds.
That's easier.
Much easier.
Nice. Yeah, I need to. I'm moving soon, so I have my cats. I need to. That'll be an adventure for my cats.
You're moving soon. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov.
Did you buy a house?
No. I almost bought a house. This is called renting.
One day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Anything else? Is that it?
That's it, I think.
And next week we'll do Epistle 25.
Yes, we will.
Yeah. We'll see how that goes. But Ezrat Hashem, I will end the broadcast.
Thank you.